Hi, my name is Fred Schreiber. My wife Ronnie and I live in the house with our son who has ALS. He's 41 and he has a feeding tube, and we have to prepare his medicines to be added through the feeding tube, and the most important thing is to avoid blockages of any kind. So I'd like to show you my technique for ensuring that there is never a blockage in his feeding tube. So the first thing we have here, a kitchen scale. This kitchen scale only weighs 1 pound, maximum weight it can do. That's 454 grams. So when we want to weigh things on it, we have to make sure that the vessel we're using is very light. So we have these polyethylene beakers, they're 250 mils, that we use to weigh out the meds. And I have 2 beakers because I do the morning and the evening meds at the same time. It's very easy. Now, the 4 medicines that we add, they're over-the-counter meds. Tutka, Leap to be Fit, L-serine, and magnesium chloride. Those are the 4 that we just buy on the web, and we weigh them out here because they're large quantities. And this one, magnesium chloride, has to be kept tightly sealed because it'll pick up moisture from the air and get sticky. And the Tutka, there are hard lumps in it which are not easy to crush with one of these things because it just smears inside the crusher, so we have a better way of doing it. After these 4 are weighed out, what we have is a mixture. It's orange because the Leap is orange. So now I'll show you how we get the meds into this and prepare to make it so it goes through the feeding tube. So over here, it's the nighttime meds. And you can see there are capsules and tablets and pills, and some of the tablets, for instance, this one. This is omeprazole. It's an over-the-counter for acid reflux. That orange-colored shell is extremely hard. It doesn't dissolve well in water. It doesn't break down well. And this is one of the main culprits that can cause a clog. The other one that can cause a clog, believe it or not, this is Ketas, also called Ibutylast. And inside the capsule, it's not powder. It's tiny little hard balls that are like concrete. And also, you cannot crush them with a crusher like this. It just doesn't work. And we have had plugs in the beginning of our feeding tube experience because these are so dense that they drop to the bottom of the feeding tube and they pile up, believe it or not. Here's the feeding tube. As they're coming down the feeding tube, they pile up where this kink is, and they don't go over the kink and get out to the stomach. So you will get a blockage if you don't deal with the Ibutylast and the omeprazole, and there are other pills too that have hard shells. So I have a second bowl that I'm just going to put the empty capsules in. That's the first thing that goes into the meds. There's 5 Ibutylast capsules. Just make sure you empty them completely. That was not Ibutylast. That was another over-the-counter pill. I don't remember what it is. Here's the last Ibutylast. Okay, that's the capsules. And the reason you don't want to put the capsules in here is because when we add water, these become very, very sticky. They stick to everything and become gluey, and you'll never get them off of anything. So you don't want these going into the water. The rest are capsules, tablets and pills, and again the omeprazole. Remember the color, you'll see that later. So that's it. It's now going to get ready, and what we do is we add water, about half a beaker. That's sufficient. And then what we use is a Cuisinart immersion blender. This is the model with 2 speeds, and we always use the high speed. The blade underneath will destroy anything in its path, so you don't want to stick your finger in there afterwards. You'll regret it, even if it's unplugged. And if you're pureeing food, even though there's something delicious in there, you don't want to lick it out. You'll regret it. So this blending will take about 2 minutes. And since this is so powerful, you have to hold the beaker, because otherwise the beaker will start to spin. So what I do is I get down like this. And the nice thing about a polyethylene beaker, you can see into it. You can see what's going on. So I put it down there. I'm going to rock it back and forth while I'm holding the button on, so that the pieces that are in there will go into the blade. So this takes about 2 minutes, and you can actually see and you can actually hear as the pills are disintegrating. Okay, now just to make sure that the medicine is ground up, I take the top piece off so that it's not top heavy. You can actually look underneath, and if there's any white stuff, which I do see, it means I haven't gone far enough or long enough. So I'll just restart it and give it another maybe 15 to 30 seconds. And now the next thing we do is we have to strain out the broken pieces of the shells of the omeprazole and anything else that survived. So we just use a simple kitchen strainer. It's just a screen, and it takes out all the little pieces. And then to rinse everything, we use this syringe. This is a really, really good syringe. It's called the O-ring syringe. Phone number is right on it. Let me pull it back a little bit so you can see. And the nice thing about it is that the O-ring is very, very skinny, so it doesn't cause any kind of swelling, and this thing will last for a year maybe. The other syringes we've used have big heavy rubber tips on them, and they swell up and plug up and they don't move. So this is really nice. So what I do is I prop up the strainer like this, make sure it's stable, and then take out the immersion blender head like this and rinse. And you want to rinse, because if you don't rinse, then you're not giving the patient all the meds that you mixed up. You're going to be leaving some behind. That's pretty good. And then the rest, we're going to pour through. There's a little bit of foam. And when you can, you swirl it a little bit to get the whatever settled to be mixed up. And now you might be able to see the omeprazole shell, it's all broken up, but it's not going into the medicine mix that's going to be going through the feeding tube. Okay, so that's the omeprazole shell, real obvious because of the color, and that stuff can cause a blockage if you don't get rid of it. So after that, you just rinse this out, because otherwise it's going to dry and plug up the strainer. And now we're ready for the enteral feeding. And you might ask, well, why can't you add the medicines to the meal that's going to be fed also? The problem is that sometimes our son can't finish a meal. So if you mix the meds with the meal and he can't finish, now he's only gotten part of the medicines. So it's better to give the medicines first, then give the meal afterwards. So in the next segment, I'll show you how this goes into our son by way of the feeding tube. Thank you. Hi, I'd like to show you this morning how to give meds through a feeding tube after they've been strained. So if you pan down here, the first thing we have to do, this is the Mickey extension tube that goes into the Mickey button. First thing we have to do is fill it with water. When this is opened from a new package, this pinch clamp is all the way at the top, but we like to slide it down here so that this whole thing can stay filled with water. And there is a kink that's in the tube because of the pinch clamp, and this pinch clamp is not guaranteed to hold the water. Sometimes it does leak, so you have to be careful about it. So first I'm going to fill the tube with water. I do that by putting the syringe that I mentioned in the last segment into some water like this, and just pulling upwards, and that will fill the tube with water. Then pinch the clamp. Now this whole thing is filled with water, and now I can take it off. And then come over here. I'm going to put it into the Mickey button by lining up the two black marks. And just rotating like that. And then I have an empty syringe barrel. I don't need the plunger in it. I'm going to put that into this holder that I built and connect it like that. And you want to make sure that the bottom curve is slanted downwards so you don't have anything accumulating in a dip in the tube. And I can raise this so I know there's a downward slope. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a funnel in the top and then add a little bit of water. And I'm going to open this so I can see that it's draining properly. And then I'm going to add the medicine. Whoops. That happens. Let it settle. Let it go through. A little more. Swirl this every so often, like that. Swirl because some of the meds, even though they've been strained, they can get through the strainer. They won't cause a blockage, but they will settle if you don't keep swirling it. Now that's all in. Take some extra water and rinse like this. And the nice thing about this syringe, you can operate it with one hand. And you just rinse, make sure that there's no color left in the water that's going down. You can even just pull up some more like this. Rinse a little bit more. Make sure that there's no color, because one of the meds has an orange color to it. And we are done. Now just close this. Take the funnel out. Disconnect, like that. Take this out. And this holder I built just allows me to have more free hands to do things, but you can do this by holding the syringe and the Mickey tube extension up, so you don't need a prop, but the prop helps. And that's it, like that. And then the pole comes apart. I made the pole into 2 parts so it can fit into a suitcase. And that's all there is to adding meds through a feeding tube. Thank you.